Okay, the first chapter that your students will do in IB is called Quantitative Chemistry. Most of your students would have done this in their earlier education, whether it's IGCSE, O-level. So what you need to do is to refresh their memory. Okay, so there are a few things that you need to make sure that your students are okay in. Okay, one is they need to be able to deduce chemical formula given the word formula. Okay, for example, they need to know that when we say nitric acid, we meant HNO3. Or when we say is iron 2 chloride, they know it's FeCl2. Okay, it's very important. The next thing that they need to be able to do is balancing equation. Okay, for normal chemical reactions, they should have done it earlier. But in IB, there is one part that is probably new to them. That's when the reaction involves reduction and oxidation. Okay. So probably this is one part that you have to go through with them more thoroughly. So these are the two important preliminary knowledge that your children or your students should know. Okay. Then after that, you need to run through the formulas with them. Okay. I usually teach my students saying that the whole thing in quantitative chemistry, everything revolves around number of moles. So I will take number of moles as my center, and there are many ways that you can calculate your number of moles depending on the data given to you. Okay. For example, if you're given the number of particles, okay, you can get number of moles from Avogadro's number. Okay, if you're given the mass, your number of moles will be mass over molar mass. If you're dealing with gaseous molecules, then it will be volume in dm cubed over 24 dm cubed. Okay, assuming we are in room temperature and pressure. Okay, and one last one, if you're working with solutions, which the students will deal with a lot, especially when we reach the titration, will be concentration times volume. But take note that this volume is not the same as the gaseous volume. Of course, this is your solution, volume of solution. Okay? And after that, you can give a lot of sample questions. You can run through with them how you do the questions, and they should be able to learn from there. Some other minor formula that you need to teach your student will be those involving percentage yield and percentage purity. Okay, so sure you should know that percentage yield is actual yield over theoretical yield times 100%. Okay, and percentage purity will be mass of pure sample over mass of impure sample times 100%. Okay. Next, we also learn about gas laws in quantitative chemistry. So the main equation that you're going to teach your students will be PV equals to nRT. Okay, it's very important to explain to them the units of each quantity in the equation. Okay? So the units, of course, temperature. Oh, this also. Temperature is in Kelvin. Okay, the value of R is given in the formula or in the data booklet. So no, students are not required to remember them. Okay. And N, as you know, is the number of moles. While P is pressure and volume. Okay. There are two combinations of units that you can use. If pressure is in kilopascal, okay, then your volume will be in dm cubed. Okay, if your pressure is in pascal, your volume is in meter cubed. But if you're scared your students like get confused or anything, then you just make them memorize one set of units. But in MCQ they may just use anything. So, well, depending, you see the ability of the students. And okay, they can also try to make the students rearrange the equations. This equation particularly. For example, they can try to relate this to molar mass, because this number of moles, remember, there are many ways of finding them. One of them is mass over molar mass, right? So if you change it that way, okay, and if you remember, like if your students remember that your mass over volume is density, they can relate it to density. For example, you can take m over v to one side, and then you get p mr over rt. Okay, this is one of the possible ways they can ask them. But normally, they'll just go to the relationship between just pressure, volume, and temperature. Okay. So the combination of them will be PV, P1, T1V over T1 is equal to P2, V2 over T2. And there will be many questions regarding this. Okay, so you can just teach your students to use this equation. Okay, and the last bit, you should discuss with your students calculation involving titration. Okay, so there will be the normal titration, and you'll also have back titration, which usually confuses students a lot. So we'll go through a lot of questions on this to make you familiar with it. And one of the other calculations that is probably going to confuse your student is finding water of crystallization. Yeah, so you can look through the notes and we'll go through the questions with you in another video.